It's late, but it's not that awful. And depending on how things go this week, you may get another episode out in a day or two.
This book is a little bit of Christian missionary propaganda.
And he perhaps is based upon a well-known literary figure, or perhaps even a historical figure.
Now, Didymus is simply the Greek word for twin. It's also used as the Greek word for testicles, for obvious reasons. There are usually two of them.
She kissed them.
Your fruit shall be without root, and your shoots shall be dried up like a branch scorched by a strong wind.
How many of you find this child Jesus an adorable, little, cute little baby? Nobody? Good.
I sprinkled my body with the bathwater that his mother had used to wash him off, and in that instant I was healed.
Greetings, fellow worker slaves, podcasting at 128 kilobits from the Fortress of Qualitude, located not far from the Redneck Mecca. This is the Atheist in the Trailer Park podcast. I'm your host, Tucker. Professor Fuzznuts is somewhere. I don't know where. He's in the house. Don't worry. He didn't get out or anything like that. Ash, Buddha, and Lord Squeakington are in my room. Yes, it's a podcast hosted by a guy and his cats. Get over it. And this is an Axel Thomas episode. It's not terrible, not great. So, it's better than the last one, but that ain't saying anything, really. And my apologies for not getting this out sooner. For various reasons, Hertzie and I had to record on Sunday night when we recorded this, which would be a week ago. No big deal. Right? I mean, we got it done early enough, and I could sit down and edit it, in theory. But hey, I could do it Monday, if nothing else, right? Yeah, well, the fucking fates conspired against me like you would not believe last week. For starters, for some reason, Buddha decided he wanted to play with Ash at about 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, Ash sleeps next to my head in the bed. And Ash is about a 10-year-old cat. And in human years, that works out to about 50-something. Buddha is just over 2 years old. Actually, probably turns 2 this month, now that I think about it. So, no, he would have turned 2 back in April. No, May. Anyways, he's 2 years old. So he's still kind of a kitten. So I'd be laying there in bed, and Buddha would hop up on the bed and attack Ash to get him to play with him. Ash doesn't like this. And since whoever the previous owner of Ash was had him declawed, Ash can't really explain things to Buddha. He can't swat him with his claws. All he can do is bat at him with his paw. And Buddha wouldn't take the hint. And so there'd be this tussle by my head, which would wake me up, and I'd chuck Buddha off the bed, try to go back to sleep, and then the whole cycle would repeat. That happened every night last week. Didn't happen yesterday, or last night when I slept, because of course I didn't have to work. But, I'm old, I'm tired, it's hard for me to get back to sleep sometimes. So, I would basically be in this weird hallucinatory state from when Buddha woke me up until about an hour before I had to get up for work. And then I would fall back asleep, and of course, the alarm would go off, and I would, just kind of drag myself out of bed. And then, shit, it was all fucked up at work. Okay? On Sundays, they publish a weekly cook schedule to let people know what they're planning on cooking during the week. And it gives you, it says, oh, okay, on Monday we're going to cook this amount, and Tuesday, they say Sunday we're going to cook this amount because second shift starts on Sunday. When, Monday we'll cook this and we'll cook that. But you can't go by it as a hard rule, as it changes. For example, this past week, we were out of some things, so there's no point in cooking stuff if you don't have the ingredients for it. And then we had a problem, and I did not mention this on the last episode, but the weekend before, or the Friday before I cut the last episode, supposed to be able to bust out of work early, and a guy comes up to me, one of the guys who works there, and says, hey, one of the supervisors needs to see you on the dry ingredient side of the plant. So I go over there, and there's a garage door on that side of the plant. It's open, and I see him standing there with a trash can and some squeegees and a couple other people, and I look, and there's a giant fucking puddle. 20 by 30 feet of corn syrup, and it is thick, like half, it's like 6 inches in spot. That's how thick it is. And it's like, oh my God. And he says, yeah, need you to start scooping this shit up. So spent all day, not all day, but I spent several hours in the hot summer sun, with others trying to get that corn syrup up. Because even though it is not hazardous, you really can't just hose that shit down the drain for various reasons. And they still haven't gotten it, I don't know what caused that leak. Something doing with the connection between the truck that delivers the corn syrup and our tank. And then this past week they had the problem that they couldn't get the corn syrup to come out of the tank. And I don't know how they resolved that. We've also had a problem for a while getting some meat because, JBS got hacked. And so that kind of slowed things down. And then we were also out of Worcestershire sauce. So you can't, the Sunday schedule for the week can't really go by, and they give you a daily schedule. And that's what you're supposed to go by. Well, for reasons that I don't know and I don't understand, they wouldn't give us the daily schedule of what we were supposed to cook until an hour before we were supposed to leave. So the lead would just have to guess as to what for us to do until we got the schedule, and then we try and adjust, what we had done. If we'd done too much of one thing, that's no big deal, but if we'd not done enough of another thing, we'd have to rush. What made me mad and just frustrated me was that he knew that on average we were going to have, say, 15 racks in a day. In a day. Well, on a shift, we can do 24 racks, 30 racks, depending upon circumstances. Sometimes a little more. And we have 3 main types of meat that we put on these racks. We've got boneless pork, and we've got pork butts, and then beef brisket. Now, most of the stuff we cook is pork, because it's the South, and that's what they like as far as their barbecue goes. And the pork, it doesn't matter what it's going to be used for, it all gets racked the same way. There's some differences because obviously you rack one cut of meat one way and a different cut of meat a different way. But unlike the brisket, we may have to trim the meat, we may have to season the meat before we put it on the racks, or we may have to season it out on the racks after we put it on the racks. We don't do anything like that with the butts. I mean, we will season some of them before we cook them, but we season them when they're on the racks. And what my lead did was he guessed, and instead of doing what I would have done and saying, well, okay, we know they're going to need about 15 racks, and we can do easy 24 racks. Let's do 12 butts, 12 boneless, and if we're over on one, that's not a problem. We can set those aside and cook those tomorrow. That'll get us ahead for tomorrow. And then we'll have, because we'll finish those 24 racks an hour or so before the end of our shift. And then if they tell us by the end of our shift, whatever, that we need more butts than we have or more boneless than what we have, we might be able to get that. He didn't do that. He'd say, okay, we're doing 15 racks, so it'll probably be 10 boneless and 5 butts. And then he'd drag everything out so that doing all that would take almost all of the shift. And then they would come out and give us the schedule, and it'd be like, oh, fuck, we did too many boneless or too many butts, and we got to do this other thing. And so it would be this mad dash to get shit done. And I wound up working anywhere between 15 minutes and an hour over. Which, that doesn't help me financially. That's just fucking annoying. It's like, if you guys planned better, we wouldn't have this issue. And so, I'd get off work and I'd be tired and I'd be frustrated and I'd come home and I'd just sort of crash for a while, and then I'd get up and I'd have to listen to Tasha screaming. And you might be able to hear slightly in the background, but I have finally got things set up so it's a little better and it's less likely for her to bother. Make loud noises. I haven't fully tested the setup yet, so this is beta. You will hear some differences because I'm using one mic for this, and then I used a different mic to record with Hertzy, so there'll be some changes there. The acoustics in this area aren't great, but it's better than nothing, and I'll be able to record more often now. I do have the issue that I'm using a Mac, which I'm not quite as familiar with. So there's a bit of a learning curve, and y'all get to experience that. But there will be, in theory, more frequent episodes now, because I have figured out that, yes, if I can set this up, I can record in here, at least me, and not have a problem. I do have the issue because Hertzy and I cut the news episode last night, which I will try to get out this week. And I couldn't use the Mac for that. I don't have the right software, and I just don't have the money to buy the right software to use it. But it does allow me to record things on my end, and as long as Tasha's not pounding on the door or on the walls right outside here, you won't really hear her. It is not very well ventilated for a variety of reasons, and so it's a little warm in here. I mean, it's been in the 90s. That's about 33 degrees Celsius for those of you in the civilized parts of the world here. And it's basically been, as soon as the sun pops its head over the horizon, the temp starts spiking here. And plus, it's been, when it hasn't been that hot, it's been raining. And so, it'll rain for like an hour, and then the sun comes out, so you just got this fetid swamp of humidity because there's no breeze in Tennessee. Tennessee is literally the worst state in the U.S. for wind power because there are so few breezes here. And if you haven't guessed, I'm kind of dragging this out because I don't want to have to get to editing the shit with the Acts of Thomas. But it's not. It really isn't as terrible as the previous episodes have been. And we have a couple more episodes that will deal with the Acts of Thomas, and then we'll get to whatever it is. Hertzie is still thinking whether or not she wants to do something other than the Malefice Malefictorum. I'm not objecting to anything she proposes, so I've kind of ran out of ideas on that front. But we definitely need something to cleanse our palate after this shit, because it's fucking awful. It's the worst thing. And we have a bit of a discussion about some of the elements of this and the other apocryphal works that I won't say any more about. I'll just let you listen for that discussion, because it's a pretty good one. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's get to Hertzie and I with more of the Acts of Thomas. Trust me, we do have some good commentary. It might not seem like it at first, but we do get some good commentary. And it's not the horror show of dullness that some of the other books have been.
All right, we should probably actually talk about Madonia getting a baptism.
Yeah.
This is back. Do you think this is when they did the full baptism thing?
I'm sure it probably did.
Oh. No, it's just like bathing habits back in the day. It's like, well, when was the last time they took a bath?
Yeah.
All right. Gospel according to Thomas, chapter 10, verse 119. And while Madonia thought thus with herself, God damn it, Grim, seriously, now? No. You can go back on the couch. Try this again. 119. And while Madonia thought thus with herself, Judas came and stood over her, and she saw him and was afraid, and fell down and became lifeless with terror. So is Judas gonna, leave? Because that's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
But he stood by and took her hand and said unto her, Fear not, Madonia, Jesus will Jesus will not leave thee, neither will the Lord unto whom thou hast committed thy soul overlook thee. His compassionate rest will not forsake thee. He that is kind will not forsake thee for his kindness' sake, nor he that is good for his goodness' sake. Rise up from the earth, thou that art become wholly above it. Look on the light, for the Lord leaveth not them that love him to walk in darkness. Behold him that travelleth with his servants, that he is unto them a defender in perils. That was pretty much one sentence.
Yeah.
It really does. Now it's kind of looking at it like, did Madonia turn because she believed, or was it to get Judas away? Like, okay, I'll do it. Just stop freaking me out.
Ain't no telling.
I know. Well, and granted, that's also assuming that any of this actually happened.
Yeah.
And Madonia arose and looked on him and said, Whither wentest thou, my lord? And who is he that brought... Oh, excuse me. And who is he that brought thee out of prison to behold the sun? Judas Thomas said unto her, My Lord Jesus is mightier than all powers and all kings and rulers. That's not an answer.
Yeah. And Macedonia said, Give me the seal of Jesus Christ, and I shall receive the gift at thy hands before thou departest out of life. And she took him with her, and entered into the court, and awaked her nurse, saying unto her, Narcia, My mother and nurse, all thy service and refreshment thou hast done for me from my childhood until my present age are vain, and for them I owe thee thanks which are temporal. Do for me now also a favor, that thou mayest forever receive a recompense from him that giveth great gifts. And Narcia in her answer saith, What will thou, my daughter, my Guidonia? And what is to be done for thy pleasure? For the honors which thou didst promise me before, the stranger hath not suffered thee to accomplish. And thou hast made me a reproach among all the nation. And now what is this new thing that thou commandest me? And my Guidonia saith, Become thou partaker with me in eternal life, that I may receive of thee perfect nurture. Take bread and bring it to me, and wine mingled with water, and spare my freedom. Take pity on me, a freeborn woman. Yeah, you want your slave to feel sorry for you. I don't think so.
And I love how the treasure or whatever she's giving her, the gift she's giving her is, oh yeah, then Jesus will do this stuff, and it's like, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Or you could give her like actual stuff that could help her,
like money and freedom.
Freedom's good. Freedom would be great.
And the nurse said, I will bring thee many loaves, and for water flagons of wine, and fulfill thy desire. Boy, if that doesn't sound like the opening to a porno, I don't know what does.
Yeah, if only we could get rid of Judas.
Yeah. But she saith to the nurse, Flagons I desire not, nor the many loaves, but this only, bring me wine mingled with water, and one loaf, and oil. Getting all lubed up.
And when Narcia had brought these things, my Guidonia stood before the apostle with her head bare, and he took the oil.
Her head bare.
I know. The oil. Oh, crap. There you go. And he took the oil and poured it on her head, saying, Thou holy oil given unto us for sanctification, secret mystery whereby the cross was shown unto us, thou art the straightener of the crooked limbs, thou art the humbler or softener of harsh things, so salt? Going with salt. Of hard things and or works, thou art it that showeth the hidden treasures, so God's a rogue. Thou art the sprout of goodness. Let thy power come. Let it be established upon thy servant, my Guidonia, and heal thou her by this freedom. And when the oil was poured upon her, he bade her nurse unclothe her. Okay.
Yep. Chicka wow wow.
And gird a linen cloth about her. And there was a foundation of water upon which the apostle went up and baptized my Guidonia in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And when she was baptized and clad, he brake the bread and took the cup of water and made her a partaker in the body of Christ and the cup of the Son of God, and said, Thou hast received thy seal, get for thyself eternal life. And immediately there was heard from above a voice saying, Yea, amen. And when Narcia heard that voice, she was amazed, and besought the apostle that she might also receive the seal. And the apostle gave it to her, and said, Let care of the Lord be about thee, and as about the rest. An interesting thing with this is actually back in the day, you were baptized and would have the first communion at about the same time.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting because the verbiage before, when he's looking at working with the oil and such, very different than what the Catholic Church did nowadays, or at least last time I heard those words. Which is interesting because I don't think anything else in the Bible actually has the words that you're supposed to use.
Yeah, somebody, and they made this great analogy, and I've never forgotten it. They said that understanding religious practice, as far as Christianity goes, by reading the Bible, doesn't tell you very much at all. It's sort of like reading a news story about baseball and trying to understand the rules of baseball. You can get some of it from it, but most of it is you don't have any idea about.
I would agree with that completely. Because, like I said, this is nothing like anything I knew.
Yeah. And having done these things, the apostle returned unto the prison and found the doors open and the guards still sleeping. And Thomas said, Who is like thee, O God? Who withholdest not thy loving affection and care from any who is like thee, the merciful, who hast delivered thy creatures out of evil? Life that hath subdued death, rest that hath ended toil. Glory be to the only begotten of the Father, glory to the compassionate that was sent forth of his heart. And when he had said thus, the guards waked and beheld all the doors open and the prisoners asleep, and said in themselves, Did we not fasten the doors? And how are they now open, and the prisoners within? And why the fuck didn't the just keep on walking? You know, you're out of prison. You keep on walking, you can keep on spreading God's message. But, you know, you go back to prison, you're going to get nailed to a tree.
Yeah. That's just weird. But by the dawn, Charius went unto Macedonia and found them, Macedonia and her nurse, and found them praying and saying, O new God, that by the stranger hast come hither unto us, hidden God of the dwellers in India, God that hast shown thy glory by thine apostle Thomas, I thought it was Judas, but Thomas, whatever. God, whose report we have heard and believed on thee, God unto whom we are come and be saved, God who for love of man and pity didst thou come down unto our littleness, God who did seek us out when we knew him, when we knew him not, God that dwelt. Well, there's a whole bunch of people who didn't know God at this point, so God is not apparently going the slow route here.
Yeah.
God that dwellest in the heights, and from whom the depths are not hid, turn thou away from us the madness of Charsius. And Charizard, hearing that, said to Macedonia, this is, well, we did actually have a sentence break, okay. Rightly callest thou me evil, and mad, and foul, for if I had not borne with thy disobedience, and given thee liberty, thou wouldest not have called on God against me, and made mention of my name before God. But believe me, my Macedonia, that in that sorcerer there is no profit, and what he promiseth to perform he cannot. But I will perform before thy sight all that I promise, that thou mayest believe and bear with my words, and be to me as thou wast before time. I think I figured out what he said, but it's still one of those, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like you can tell that this Thomas guy is a con, which I don't disagree with.
And he came near and besought her again, saying, If thou wilt be persuaded of me, I shall henceforth have no grief. Remember that day when thou didst meet me first. Tell the truth. Was I more beautiful unto thee at that time, or Jesus at this? And Macedonia said, that time required its own, and this time also. That was the time of the beginning, but this of the end. That was the time of temporal life, this of eternal. That of pleasure that passeth away, but this of pleasure that abideth forever. That of day and night, this of day without night. Thou sawest that marriage that was passing in here and single, but this marriage continueth forever. That was a partnership of corruption. But this of eternal life, those groomsmen and maids were men and women of time, but these abide unto the end. That marriage upon earth setteth up, dropping dew of the love of men. That bride chamber is taken down again, but this remaineth always. That bed was strewn with coverlets, but this with love and faith. Thou art a bridegroom that passeth away, and art dissolved, but Jesus is a true bridegroom, enduring forever immortal. That dowry was of money and robes that grow old, but this is of living words which never pass away. Boy, I can just see, an actress in like a 50s movie, religious themed movie done by one of the big Hollywood studios, reciting a version of this in very overwrought tones and, turning away dramatically at different points and times.
And when Charizard heard these things, he went unto the king and told him, and the king commanded Judas to be brought that he might judge him and destroy him. But Charizard said, Have patience a little, O king, and first persuade the man making him afraid, that he may persuade my Guidonia to be unto me as formerly. And Medeus sent and fetched the apostle of Christ, and all the prisoners were grieved because the apostle departed from them. We're really getting that energy from before where, oh yes, everyone was so sad that you left. For they yearned after him, saying, Even the comfort which we have they taken away from us. Really?
Yeah.
This, just these lines alone, I could see why this wasn't included.
Well, I mean, this and Andrew, and I don't remember if it was another apostle. Yeah, it was, because there was Paul. I've read 3 or 4 of these tales that deal with, the post-crucifixion life of the disciples. And they all have the same plot. Dude goes out, spreads the word, convinces some important guy's wife that she should no longer sleep with her husband, and then gets crucified for it.
But do all of them have the same "everybody loved me" piece?
Yeah, they kind of do. They have, this thing of, well, everything was better before this guy showed up. You loved me. People paid attention to me. They listened to me. They respected me. And now that's all gone, so we're going to kill dude.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
They did.
But I mean, there's a theory that if Jesus existed, he was actually a political revolutionary, and his movement got turned into a religious one, which makes sense to some degree. But these other guys, they're not trying to, they're not crucified because they angered the church leaders. They're crucified because they're cock blocking some guy. Or another way to look at it is...
It's just kind of political. I mean,
yeah.
Especially if they didn't have an heir.
Or another way to look at it is they were executed because they were telling women they have control of their own bodies.
That really flies in the face of Christianity, though, and
Right.
I would say even more like pretty much most of the religions at the time.
Right, but that would be a reason why these things were cut out of the Bible, even though they told the same story, or even though that everybody agrees. Well, yes, Thomas went to India.
Them they can, I'm going to challenge you real quick.
Okay.
Is it telling them that they have control over their own body, or is it trading one subjugation for another? Because yes, they're saying you don't have to sleep with your husband, but it's saying you shouldn't sleep with your husband because he doesn't love God, which really is more just one subjugation to another.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But and it could also be, well, dude is not, like a lot of cult leaders, he's doing this whole thing to meet women, and he's banging other, these guys are mad because dude's sleeping with their wife.
Which again, we can say yes, it's political, but also is, not quite political.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I think the best we have for Jesus is they found a apocalypse preacher who fit enough of the bill and then crammed as much as they could into it.
Yeah. Well, I've said before, I think that if there actually was a Jesus, he was the guy that started the sect at Qumran. And that would actually predate the time Jesus lived. But there's enough stuff there that just makes me think, yeah, he was the founder of the sect. And with it taking so long for stuff to get written down back then, that would actually hook up better than if he lived when he was supposed to have lived.
Admittedly, whether or not Jesus lived is pretty low on the list of things I care about.
Right. Well, it's sort of like finding out if Zeus was based on a real person. Doesn't change anything. It's a nice little bit of information, but it doesn't change anything at all, really.
Admittedly, if Zeus is based after a person, that does raise so many more questions than Jesus. Because you have an entire family where you're looking and going, what the hell happened to y'all? Jesus never had sex with his sister.
That we know of.
Fair. That's just one of those, it's like, they're all just stories, and some of them are a lot better than others. Zeus is better than Jesus. Just saying that out loud.
Yeah, Zeus was at least honest.
Yeah, well, and the gods in Norse mythology and the gods in Greek mythology were able to be fallible.
And they didn't have a problem with people fucking.
No. All right. Are we... Sorry, I lost the place again.
No, I think it's my turn. And so it's...
Okay, good. I was like, pretty sure it's not my turn.
Yeah. And Mizdeus said unto Judas, I'm sorry, wherefore teachest thou this new doctrine, which both gods and men hate? Oh, really? So God hates it. That's a new one. And which hath not of profit. And Judas said, what evil do I teach? And Mizdeus said, thou teachest, saying that men with the God whom... Well, okay, that bracket stuff doesn't seem to make much sense, but the sentence doesn't make much sense without it, so I'll read it with it this time. Thou teachest, saying that men cannot chastely live, they accept well. With the God thou preachest, Yes.
No, just trying to map that sentence. The Christianity, even in the way back, like really, really was obsessed with how many times people had sex.
Right. Well, if you can control the biological drives of people, then they're easier to manipulate. That's one of the reasons why they go so viciously after homosexuality. Because you put somebody in a state of cognitive dissonance when you have them deny their sexuality. It's also, why they object to women masturbating. I mean, because men masturbating, you can argue, well, the semen could have fertilized an egg. Woman masturbates, she just has a good time. She's not firing out eggs or anything like that. But still, they don't want women doing it.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Judas saith, Thou sayest true, O king, thus do I teach. For me, art thou not wroth with thy soldiers if they wait on thee in filthy garments? I do not know.
Apparently they didn't do a lot of laundry?
I don't know. That makes no sense. If then thou, being a king of earth, and returning unto earth, request thy subjects to be reverend in their doings, are ye wroth, and said ye that I teach ill when I say that they who serve my king must be reverent and pure and free from all grief and care of children and unprofitable riches and vain trouble? For indeed thou wouldst have thy subjects follow thy conversation and thy manners, and thou punish them if they despise thy commandments. How much more must they that believe on him serve my God with much reverence and cleanness and security, and be quit of all pleasures of the body, adultery, and prodigality, and theft, and drunkenness, and belly service, and foul deeds.
I mean, I'm all about foul deeds and drunkenness.
And belly service.
I have no idea what belly service is.
That's obviously eating.
Oh, yeah. Food? Yes, food is good. And names.
I know.
There's no Pokemon I can pull for this one. I'm sure there is. I just can't think of one off the top of my head. Mizideus, hearing these things, said, Lo, I let thee go. What? Why? Go then and persuade my Gudonia, the wife of Charizard, not to desire to depart from him. Judas saith unto him, Delay not, if thou hast aught to do. For her, if she hath rightly received what she hath learned, neither iron nor fire nor aught else stronger than these will avail to hurt or to root out him that is held in her soul. I don't think anyone cares who's in her soul. It's just,
Yeah.
Mizideus saith unto Judas, this is like he said, she said right now. This is ridiculous. Some poisons do dissolve other poisons, and etheric cureth the bite of the viper. And thou, if thou cannot give a solvent of those diseases, and make peace and concord betwixt this couple, for by doing thou wilt spare thyself, for not yet that art thou stated in with life. And know thou that if thou do not persuade her, I will catch thee away out of this life, which is desirable unto all men. Which is desirable unto all men. And Judas said, This life, seriously, this is like, and then Judas said, And then Mithridates said, Judas, this life hath given as a loan, and this time is one that changeth. But that life whereof I teach is incorruptible, and beauty and youth that are seen shall in a little cease to be. The king saith to him, I have counselled thee for the best, but thou knowest thine own affairs. Those are words.
Yeah. Those are certainly all words.
I mean, we could have shortened this to Medeius and Judas argued whether or not Judas should, get Madonia to go back to Charizard. I'm not saying that she should have to go back to Charizard.
Yeah.
Just really weird.
And as the apostle went forth from before the king, Tiresias came to him and entreated him and said, I beseech thee, O man, I have not sinned against thee or any other at any time, nor against the gods. Wherefore hast thou stirred up this great calamity against me? And for what cause hast thou brought such disturbance upon my house? And what profit hast thou of it? But if thou thinkest to gain somewhat, tell me the gain, what it is, and I will procure it for thee without labor. To what end dost thou make me mad, and cast thyself into destruction? For if thou persuade her not, I will both dispatch thee, and finally take myself out of life. But if, as thou sayest, after our departing hence, there is there life and death, and also condemnation and victory, and a place of judgment, then I will also go in thither, and be judged with thee. And that if God whom thou preachest is just, and awardeth punishment justly, I know that I shall gain my cause against thee, for thou hast injured me, having suffered no wrong at my hands. For indeed, even here I am able to avenge myself on thee, and bring upon thee all that thou hast done to me. Therefore be thou persuaded, and come home with me, and persuade my Macedonia to be with me, as she was at first, before she beheld thee. And Judas saith to him, Believe me, my child, that if men loved God as much as they love one another, they would ask of him all things and receive them, and none would do them violence. There would be nothing which would not obey them. Yeah, I think somebody's had a stroke, or you're muted.
Ha! I was muted. When you asked if somebody had a stroke, I was like, I think that's the writer. Definitely going with the writer. Because you know that somebody probably had to take down this dictation.
Well, something, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, 129. And as Thomas said this, they came unto the house of Charizard, and found Macedonia sitting, and Narcissus standing by her and her hand supporting her cheek. And she was saying, Let the remainder of the days of my life, O mother, be cut off from me, and all the hours become as 1 hour, and let me depart out of life, that I may go the sooner and behold that beautiful one, whose report I have heard, even that living one, and giver of life unto them that believe on him. See, this is the thing. It's always the thing. It's like, why wouldn't you want to go faster? Where is not day and night, nor light and darkness, nor good and evil, nor poor and rich, nor male or female, nor free and bond, nor proud is that subject be humble. And as she spake, the apostle stood before her. I thought he was in jail, or just out of jail, or with the king. And forthwith she rose and did him reverence. Then Charizard said unto him, Seest thou how she feareth and honoureth thee? And all that thou shalt bid her she will do willingly. Man, this is creepy AF.
Yeah.
This sounds like somebody's fantasy where they're able to get somebody else's girl. And it'd be interesting if all of these are so similar. It'd be interesting to see if it just all was one person just continuously writing the same fantasy over and over.
50 Shades of Crucifixion?
Ugh. 50 Shades of Grey is bad enough.
And you know what's sad?
Hmm.
I know people whose lives were so milquetoast that they actually learned things from those books.
Yeah, the problem is they didn't learn anything good.
Yeah,
It was so badly done.
I know, but I mean, like, I can understand somebody who's, they've never done bondage because they're not into that. But to have apparently, as some of these people I know have expressed, to have never even heard of it.
Yeah, so when it was coming out, I actually worked in an adult store, and I wasn't able to work there long. I loved working there though. It was so much fun. But it was a second job, and so my brain didn't like that.
Yeah, I can understand.
But anyways, one of the things that I would do is I'd be like, I had a spiel for whenever somebody brought anything up with BDSM stuff. And actually, before I left, I had somebody come back and I told him like, yeah, this is, my last 2 weeks and stuff. And he's like, oh, that's too bad because, you really helped me out with your spiel. And I was like, oh. On the flip side, I had these 2 girls coming in and they were all like, hee about everything. And I'm like, please understand, people have literally died because of this. And they're like, there's kind of like a killjoy on there. And I'm like, don't.
Yeah, there's, sadly he passed away due to AIDS several decades ago. But I used to know a guy who he worked in an adult store in Nashville, and he was one of these guys who, well, he kind of talked like this, and he had a very offbeat sense of humor, because at the time in Japan, you couldn't have pornographic photos that showed pubic hair.
Oh, that must have been about the time they also didn't let you show actual penetration.
Yeah, and so, we've got, there's a number of Japanese businesses who have operations here, and when their their managers or whomever would come over to the U.S., they'd always hit the porn shops. And so the guy I knew, his name was Jim Holt, the way, the counter was set up, he could see people coming towards the store before they ever got into the store and before they could see him because the windows were tinted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever he saw Japanese guys coming in, he would grab a dildo with a suction cup, stick it to his forehead, and then when they opened the door, he'd jump up from behind the counter and go, "Welcome to America!" And he was always really popular with him because he would show them, he explained to them that all the porn videos that they sold, they were all on this certain brand of videotape, and you just go to like Walmart and buy the blank videotapes and put the stickers over the ones that that came with the porn, and you put them in the sleeves that the blank videotapes came in, and they could get them through customs in Japan because they thought they were stuff that those guys had recorded here.
I was gonna say when you first started that bit about the dildo on his head, I was just like, oh, good to know that it turned out well.
Yeah.
I think my only complaint was there was a very specific type of customer who came in and they would always just get porn, and it was always just like the stuff where you're just like, oh, really? Like 18 and ready to pop, and you're just like, okay, this is what we're doing.
Well, there was
I guess I shouldn't kink shame, but it was one of those they were very clearly like 40 years old.
Yeah. There was a guy I knew who died, and we went into his place and we're cleaning it out. And we found his stash of porn mags, and they were really strange because they all of them, they had the women being tied up, but the women were always fully clothed. And, you know, there wasn't anything other than, you know, some of the positions they had the women in would have been mildly uncomfortable. There wasn't anything like extreme about it. So, you know, it's like they weren't tied up and hanging from the ceiling or anything like that. They were just tied to a chair and they were all fully clothed.
Yep.
And I had never seen anything like that. You know, I mean, I've seen bondage stuff, but usually they're naked or wearing a costume. These were like the clothes you'd wear anywhere. So I don't know. All right. And as he so spake, Judas saith unto Mygodonia, My daughter Mygodonia, obey that which thy brother Cheresias has said. And Mygodonia saith, If thou wast not able to name the deed in word, wilt thou compel me to endure the act? For I have heard of thee that this life is of no profit, and this relief is for a time, and these possessions are transitory. And again thou saidst that whoso renounceth this life shall receive the life eternal, and whoso hateth the light of day and night shall behold a light that is not overtaken. Thou whoso despiseth this money shall find other and eternal money. But now thou things these sayest, because thou art in fear. Who hath done somewhat, and is praised for the work changeth it? Who and a tower buildeth straightway overthroweth it from the foundation? Who diggeth a spring water in a thirsty land, and straightway filleth it in? Who findeth a treasure, and useth it not? And Cheresias heard it, and said, I will not imitate you, nor will I hasten to destroy you, nor, though I may so do, will I put bonds about thee, and I will not suffer thee to speak with this sorcerer, and if thou obey me, well, but if not, I know what I must do. That is just surreal.
So wait, Mygodonia is the daughter of...
No, he's you know, like a preacher calls.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Mygodonia and Charizard really just need a divorce, so Mygodonia can go and get out of under this cultist's thumb, get her own place, and do what she wants.
Yeah.
And Charizard needs to get over it.
I mean, he should be allowed to have a dozen other wives at this period of time, so why not just get some more?
Yeah. Though, I mean, there's always a question of heirs and politics with all of this stuff. And Judas went out of Charizard's house and departed unto the house of Cyphor and lodged there with him. And Cyphor said, I will prepare for Judas a hall wherein he may teach. Cyphor said unto Judas, Prepare thyself an apartment. And he did so. And Cyphor said, I and my wife and daughter will dwell henceforth in holiness and in chastity and in one affection. See, this is the thing. It's like, it really is trading one subjugation for another, because now all of them are going to be completely chaste. Mm-hmm. And it's like, really? Why? It really is sounding more and more like this is somebody's fantasy of a cult that they wanted to start and never was able to. And how this is basically a cult, like somebody who wanted to start a cult and never was able to do it. Because the control of sex is incredibly important when you talk about those cult leaders.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anyways, I beseech thee that we may receive of thee the seal and become worshippers of the one true God, and numbered among his sheep and lambs. And Judas said, I am afraid to speak that which I think, yet I know somewhat, and what I know it is not possible for me to utter. Jack, you seriously don't want to drink my coffee. There's cat hair in my coffee. Why is there cat hair in my coffee?
Because you have a cat.
That's a partially correct answer.
I need to get one of those goopy things to clean the cat hair off my keyboard.
Ooh, yeah, that'd probably be a good idea.
And he
sorry. Talking to the cat.
Yeah. And he began to say concerning baptism, this baptism is remission of sins. This bringeth forth again light that is shed about us. This bringeth to new birth the new man. This is the restorer of understandings. This mingleth the spirit with the body, raiseth up in the threefold wise a new man, and maketh him partaker of the remission of sins. Glory be to thee, hidden one, that art communicated in baptism. Glory to thee, the unseen power that is in baptism. Glory to thee, renewal, whereby are renewed they that are baptized, and with affection take hold upon thee. And having thus said, he poured oil over their heads, and said, Glory be to thee, the love of compassion bowels. Glory to thee, name of Christ. Glory to thee, power established in Christ. And he commanded a vessel to be brought, and baptized them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Now that's a little more closer.
Yeah. So, you read one.
Tucker?
Yes.
Oh, okay. For a moment, I thought I was muted again.
No. You read 133, and we'll call it quits.
Sounds like a plan. Cat, I need to get to my mouse. I understand that you want to sit there, but I need to get to my mouse, and I cannot see my mouse with you sitting there. Excuse me for a moment.
Yes.
Jack is being uncooperative.
Imagine that.
I know. And he's bigger than Grimm, so it's harder to move him around the way. And when they were baptized and clad, he set bread on the table and blessed it, and said, Bread of life, the which who eat abide incorruptible. That is not how that goes anymore. Bread that filleth the hungry souls with the blessing thereof. Thou art he that vouchsafest to receive a gift, that thou mayest become into us remission of sins, and that they who eat may become immortal. We invoke upon thee the name of the Mother, of the unspeakable mystery, of the hidden powers and authorities. We name the name of the unspeakable mystery that is hidden from all. We invoke upon thee the name of thy Jesus. And he said, Let the powers of blessing come and be established in this bread, that all the souls in which partake of it may be washed from their sins. And he brake and gave unto Cypher and his wife and daughter. Jeez. That's really long way of saying they had communion.
Yeah.
How much farther do we have left?
We've got maybe... Oh, God. It ends at 170.
Okay.
But this wasn't quite as bad as some of the other shit we've read from here, so...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, this one, we almost had full sentences that made sense.
Yeah. So...
And we really did, at least in my... We really did confirm that this is basically a cult, an attempted cultist fantasy.
Yeah. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah.
That's it for this episode of The Atheist in the Trailer Park Podcast. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, as well as just about anywhere else podcasts can be found. Many of the episodes are also on YouTube. Follow the show on Twitter. @TParkAtheist is the show's Twitter handle. It's on Facebook at facebook.com/trailerparkatheist.com. If you happen to like the podcast, please rate it on iTunes. If you'd like to support the podcast, there's a donate button on the show notes page. You can support it via Patreon at patreon.com/TNTucker. Thanks for listening.
Say goodnight, Fuzz-Nuts.
All I know is this violates every canon of respectable broadcasting.
Damned cat.